The Galactic Council chamber hovered in serene silence, suspended over the emerald clouds of Zereth Prime. Inside, a dozen species, some crystalline, others gelatinous or armored, gathered around a shimmering oval table that pulsed with psionic energy. This was the command center of a thousand-world empire, the seat of collective arrogance and cold logic. Each representative sat with centuries of war behind them and the certainty of superiority in their eyes. A hologram of Earth rotated lazily above the table, marked with red notations and pulsing threat indicators. Laughter, deep, clicking, whistling laughter, echoed from the assembled warlords. "You're telling me," rasped Vectal, the insectoid commander of the Zewix Armada, "that this species, this carbon mammal, sent one marksman?" The hologram shifted to a blurry image of a man clad in matte black armor, rifle slung low across his back, face obscured by a sleek combat visor. No insignia, no rank, just a name. Elias Vorn. "They didn't even bother with unit designation," sneered Commander RHYX of Kaltari. "This isn't a counterattack. It's a cry for help. Pathetic." Yet the speaker from Earth, a soft-voiced AI interpreter, had stated clearly that Vorn was Earth's official intervention unit, authorized under Clause 17 of the Galactic Mutual Defense Accord. A peacekeeper, they said, a last resort. A hush fell for a moment as the council processed the absurdity. Then Vectal slammed his claw on the table and bellowed, "Send a scout team. We'll drag his corpse back to them in pieces." Far below, on the desolate plains of Virulon's third moon, Elias lay motionless beneath a blanket of dust and camouflage mesh. The triple suns overhead cast shifting shadows through the thin atmosphere. His breathing was slow, controlled. His heartbeat synced with the vibration of the ground beneath him. He didn't need to move. He had been in position for 11 hours. Waiting was the only part he liked. His HUD flickered as data streamed in. Trajectory winds, electromagnetic noise, shield densities, alien heat signatures. Across the valley stood the target. Grand Strategist Vor, architect of the orbital bombardments on Earth's Mars colony. Vor had left the safety of his warship to inspect forward command. That was his first and last mistake. Arius 9, Elias muttered, tapping the side of his rifle. The weapon whirred softly, realigning magnetic coils. A light hum ran through its barrel, like a whisper before a storm. Its scope activated, Widow's Eye, linking directly to his neurochip and calculating variables faster than any living mind. In his ear, a low ping signaled an encrypted line opening. A voice, calm and clinical, spoke. "Command channel open. Confirm identity. Vorn, 0581. Mission objective, active. Target in sight," Elias whispered. There was a pause, filled only with the soft shifting of solar wind. "Permission to engage?" Elias exhaled slowly, eyes narrowing behind his visor. "Permission granted," he said. Galactic strategists were stood atop a crystalline ridge, unaware, surrounded by guards, shield drones, and atmospheric distortion fields. He was confident in the layers of technology that had kept him alive for 2 centuries. He adjusted the clasp on his cloak, turned toward his shuttle, and his chest exploded in a silent burst of red mist. The sound came 2 seconds later, delayed by the thin air, a low, wet crack, like the universe clearing its throat. Panic erupted. Drones screamed into the sky. Shields flared. Vor's body toppled sideways like a felled statue, the hole in his armor still hissing from kinetic shock. His guards scattered, firing blindly, shouting in languages that stank of fear. High above, back in the floating council chamber, alarms triggered. Vor's vitals flatlined. Surveillance feeds scrambled. A chorus of voices demanded answers, replays, explanations. "Where did the shot come from?" barked Vectal. 1,000 sensors were already spinning calculations. Distances, angles, probability curves. The answer returned, unknown. Elias was gone. He hadn't moved much, just 4 meters, crawled like a shadow into the fold of a broken crater wall. By the time the first drones arrived, they found only dust and silence. His trail was erased. His presence, a ghost note in the orchestra of war. Back in the chamber, the laughter had stopped. "Commander RHYX stare at the frozen image of Vor's corpse. That shouldn't be possible. The Earth delegate's AI voice returned, this time with a new message. This was a warning shot. Further hostilities will not be tolerated. Vectal slammed his claw again, this time not in amusement but in frustration. We underestimated the humans. No, muttered a smaller voice, an old strategist from the Zlothai delegation, whose people had fought humans in ancient skirmishes and still bore scars. We didn't underestimate them. We forgot what they are. As the council descended into chaotic debate, Elias watched from the rim of a high ridge, rifle cradled loosely in his arms. The echo of the shot still vibrated through his bones. It was never about the kill. It was about the message. In his visor, a line of text flickered. Target 1, neutralized. Secondary objectives, pending. He turned his head slightly, watching the retreating shuttles leave the battlefield. Then he whispered again, almost too softly for even his calm to catch. They heard it and disappeared into the dust. Silence hung in the war chamber like a shroud. The Council of Systems, once confident and contemptuous, now simmered in disbelief. Their strongest fortress had been breached not by a fleet nor an armada of quantum assassins, but by a single human with a rifle. The image of Mulvor's lifeless form, still twisted mid-fall, flickered endlessly across the chamber screens. No one dared to speak first, not even Vectal. Elias Vorn had become more than a soldier. He was a specter. Across the systems, the ripple spread like a Terran certainty. On the moons of Nakaris, where warlords train assassins from birth, academies pause their lessons to study the trajectory. On the frost worlds of Zal, psionic sentinels meditated on the concept of a human achieving such precision. Even the mechanized collectives, those cold, number-driven empires, struggled to compute how one soft-flesh being had killed someone behind 6 layers of energy shielding, atmosphere distortion, and predictive field dampeners. The shot wasn't just lethal. It was impossible. In a data vault hidden beneath the Pacific, Earth's command node processed hundreds of intercepted transmissions. Analysts, some barely out of university, watched as dozens of alien fleets entered holding patterns. Fear, they realized, wasn't just spreading, it was crystallizing. Within a reinforced cave system on Virulon's dark side, Elias cleaned his rifle. The metal sang softly into the cloth. Clean, precise strokes in total silence. Widow's eye, his scope, blinked with quiet approval as diagnostics ran. He didn't celebrate. There was nothing glorious about a kill. The galaxy had seen it as performance art. To Elias, it had been obligation. Vor had orchestrated the death of over 2,000 colonists on Mars. Many were engineers. Some were children. His was a necessary silence. His breathing was even, eyes scanning the horizon through the visor. The terrain had already changed. Drones combed the ridges, some visible, others spectral. Vorn didn't move. Movement was noise. He let the environment swallow him. 10 kilometers away, a tactical retrieval team moved carefully through the crater field. 6 alien warriors from the Yelf Consortium, each enhanced with cybernetic tracking implants. Their optics glowed amber as they surveyed every ripple in the dust. There, one of them whispered, pointing at a faint thermal distortion. But as they advanced, they found only heat signatures carefully embedded in a decoy tarp. The sniper had already predicted their approach vector, time of arrival, and scanning patterns. A split second later, a high-pitched tone cut through their comms. All 6 paused. A message appeared on their HUDs in Galactic Standard. You're late. The sniper didn't shoot. He didn't need to. The message was the bullet. The team withdrew. On the Council's homeworld, debates erupted over Vorn's capabilities. Some dismiss him as a statistical anomaly, a lone outlier. Others argued Earth had withheld their true advancements. Many simply wanted to bury the truth. But suppression was futile. The feeds had already spread across 300 worlds. Footage of the shot was slowed, analyzed, dissected, debated. Civilian channels dubbed him the Whisperer. Merchant soul hollow figures of a lone human in shadow. Military academies across the galaxy began rewriting training modules. He was not a soldier now. He was folklore. Elias watched a dropship descend into the valley. distant, cautious, carrying high-value officials who likely believed their presence was untraceable. He didn't raise his weapon. Not yet. The rifle remained in its cradle, awaiting purpose. Instead, he reached into a side pouch and pulled out a single-folded photograph, creased and worn. It showed two girls, both grinning under the pale red sky of Mars. Behind them stood a habitat dome, cracked from the bombardment but still standing. His thumb traced their faces. His nieces. There were no graves for them, only ash. He placed the photo back without ceremony and adjusted the rifle's angle 3 degrees. Widows I recalibrated instantly, overlaying range, atmospheric pressure, and shielding frequencies. His next target hadn't arrived yet, but they would. In orbit, Commander RHYX stood before a map flickering with red zones. Their best stealth cruisers had failed to triangulate Vorn's position. Electromagnetic anomalies had rendered their probes blind. Even psychic tracers had shorted out, disrupted by interference they couldn't explain. "This is not warfare," RHYX muttered. "It's humiliation." Another officer approached, hands trembling. "Ma'am." Earth's AI just transmitted a second message. RHYX turned, eyes narrowing. "Let's hear it." The chamber fell quiet as the translation played. "Humanity has no fleets in your space, no armies in your skies. Only one. If he falls, 10 will rise. Ask yourselves, how many more warnings do you deserve?" It was signed, Office of Earth Sovereignty, Ghost Protocol activated. For the first time in her life, RHYX felt something she couldn't admit in front of her command. A deep, gnawing fear not of species, but what it meant to underestimate them. Back on the moon's surface, Elias shifted position. Slowly, purposefully. His heart rate remained steady as Widow's Eye whispered. New target arrival detected. Priority, strategist class. He exhaled through his nose, repositioning his sights. The wind carried fine red dust over his visor, veiling him further. One shot had changed the tempo of an empire. The next would change its structure. The wind howled across Virlon's ridgelines, carving deep furrows in the crimson sand. Far beneath the storm's reach, in the belly of Scorched Canyon, Elias Vorn stalked the silence like a memory, present but unseen. His movements were slow, mechanical only in precision, not in spirit. The Widow's Eye scope pressed gently against his visor, cycling through layers of vision, thermal, magnetic, spectral. Nothing escaped its scrutiny. Above, a warship broke the clouds, sleek, dagger-shaped, and pulsing with indigo plasma along its hull. The insignia of the Dracian Vanguard glowed on its side, and with it came death. The Phantom Unit. These weren't foot soldiers or diplomatic guards. These were elite executioners, bred and reared in gravitational compression chambers, augmented beyond the limits of most sentient physiology. Their assignment was simple: find and neutralize a human sniper before he embarrassed the Council further. They had failed before even touching the ground. Elias had already mapped their descent trajectory and encoded it into his neural field. As their boots hit the dust, he had eyes on them. 6 sentinels, 3 wielding displacer blades, 2 with autocannons, 1 carrying a psionic staff that glowed with latent energy. They scanned with alien efficiency, forming concentric search rings, their boots emitting only faint hisses. Elias didn't fire. He didn't need to. Not yet. A bullet wasted on bait was a bullet not available for a war. Instead, he moved through the canyon shadows, silent as mineral drift, his armor adapting to light, temperature, even sound. Earth's stealth tech wasn't built for open war. It was built for vanishing. Against the most sophisticated life forms in the galaxy, humanity's greatest weapon had become invisibility. He remembered the first time they left behind. 18 years old, dropped on a rogue mining colony during a Black Flag operation. His unit was overrun within hours. Earth Command presumed him dead. He survived for 16 months, alone, wounded, forgotten. But he didn't just live. He adapted, learned the pulse of alien thought, studied how they hunted, how they hesitated, learned how to not be seen, not by tech, not by instinct. When he was extracted, he was no longer the same boy. He had become the space between the beats. A soft ping echoed in his ear, an encrypted burst message from Earth. No instructions, just coordinates and a single-word update. Negotiations pending. The code beneath the message revealed more. The council was fracturing. Half wanted peace. The others wanted vengeance. One more shot, and diplomacy might become surrender. But that shot had to be chosen carefully. Too early, and fear would be replaced with rage. Too late, and Earth would be invited only to its own funeral. His scope locked onto the psionic wielder. She moved differently, measured, as though already aware of him but unsure of his location. Her mind, like others of her kind, extended in psychic ripples. He tilted his rifle away, switching to biometric override mode. Her pulse irregular. She was bait too. She wasn't looking for him. She was listening for his intent. He shut down all active brainwaves. The widow's eye pulsed, briefly warning of consciousness suppression. He accepted the risk. His thoughts slowed to a crawl, his awareness submerged in calculated quiet. The psionic stopped mid-step, looked around, then moved on. She had felt nothing. It was a gamble. Too long without full neural activity, and he'd lose more than his location. He'd lose himself. He let his mind rise again, slowly, like surfacing from deep water. The world sharpened. He was still hidden, still alive, but something had changed. A beacon had activated 3 clicks east. An emergency frequency, alien in origin but human in code structure. Not Council, not Dracian. Something rogue. Elias adjusted his position, scaled aside a weathered cliff, and activated his signal suppressors. He reached the ridge and stared across the horizon. There was a flicker of blue light just above a crashed alien lander, and beside it, moving cautiously, was a figure draped in scavenger robes. Human. His heart rate didn't spike, but his hand tensed. Earth had no units deployed in this region. That meant only one thing: defector, rogue operative, or collateral. He zoomed in. The figure was a woman. Early 30s, from what he could tell. She held a transmitter. Earth tech. Stripped and rewired into a hybrid beacon. He recognized her. Dr. Lyra Quaid, exobiologist. Presumed dead during the Mars colony attacks. She had been aboard one of the last refugee ships, one that never arrived. Now here she was, alive, tampering with a council distress signal. He didn't reveal himself. Not yet. Instead, he watched her disabled beacon, bury it, and walk away, toward the edge of a ravine known to be riddled with sensor mines. She knew the terrain. She had been here long. Perhaps too long. Elias activated a short-range kinetic pulse from his rifle, barely enough to shift a pebble. She froze, looked toward the ridge, didn't run, didn't speak. Then she did something that surprised him. She raised her hand and drew a spiral in the air, a signal, old Earth military, code for friendly, in field, eyes open. He lowered the rifle, but not his guard. She was a variable now, one he hadn't accounted for, and variables led to chaos. Still, as he watched her vanish into the rocks, something gnawed at him. A memory of Mars, of faces burned into ash, of voices lost to vacuum. She had been on the casualty list. But someone had helped her survive. Maybe that someone had secrets. Maybe they weren't done with Elias either. The widow's eye blinked again. Priority target confirmed. En route. Arrival in 16 hours. He shut the feed. This one wouldn't be bait. This would be real. And when it arrived, the galaxy would either bend or break. Aboard the orbital Citadel Vorthes spine, silence reigned, a sterile, suffocating silence not born of peace, but of precision. Every surface gleamed under the weight of psychic reinforcement, the air thick with quantum insulation. The station hovered alone, invisible to all but the Council's most trusted systems. It was a fortress without a door, a place not even fleets could approach without invitation. Inside, Prime Strategist Solarii Creel stood barefoot on the observation deck, eyes fixed on the rotation of Virulon below. His robe hung loose over his angular shoulders, embroidered with shifting glyphs that flickered in and out of visible spectrum. Symbols of foresight, lineage control. Creel was a mind the Council consulted when war spiraled out of logic, when ideology failed, and raw intellect was all that remained. He had orchestrated 100 wars without ever lifting a weapon. But this was different. Creel had watched the feed, frame by frame, of Elias Vorn's first shot. He had replayed the slow-motion death of Mulvor, calculated its probability, then discarded it. There was no model that accounted for a shot that clean, that precise, that final, not from a species so biologically crude, and yet the sniper existed, not just as a threat, but as an assertion, a thesis from Earth, delivered in a single wordless sentence. Now Creel was alone, bait in a trap no one could predict. 37 kilometers below, Elias Vorn adjusted the rifle's angle by a fraction of a degree. The Widow's Eye ran atmospheric corrections, overlaying gravitational drift, ion storm scatter, and orbital resonance fluctuations. The target moved in slow orbit, masked by distortion fields designed to hide entire cities. But to Elias, the fortress might as well have had glass walls. He had been tracking it for days, studying its cycle, waiting for the one moment when a narrow gap in the fields would appear, a window no wider than a heartbeat. His breath slowed, pulse evened, body became still. He had not come to destroy the citadel. He had come for its voice. Elias didn't hate Solarii Creel. There was no hatred left in him, only calibration. Creel was the last name on the kill list. Strategist, executor, the one who greenlit the bombardment on the Mars colony, who watched Earth's diplomats burn with the same curiosity he applied to studying gravitational anomalies. He had thought humans lacked reach, that their silence was surrender. He would learn. Above, Creel closed his eyes, whispering the final line of a ritual older than the stars. In the shadow of certainty, we find our end. A heartbeat later, Elias pulled the trigger. There was no sound, only intention. The bullet was not shaped like any known munition. It folded space as it moved, tunneling through shield harmonics, slipping past AI firewalls, bypassing reality like with suggestion, not law. The Citadel's defenses activated nanoseconds too late. The final alert, incoming object detected, never had time to resolve into threat classification. The bullet entered through a vent designed to release psychic heat and struck Creel just above the clavicle, severing the secondary neural lobe that governed his tactical cognition. His body collapsed before he registered pain. Eyes still open, lips parted, as if about to ask a question no longer relevant. The station's AI immediately uploaded Creel's final neural command, a contingency embedded deep in his gray matter. Cease engagement with Earth. Total armistice. Mandate irreversible. Signed, Creel. Every council ship received it. Every admiral. Every warlord. There was no vote. No appeal. Creel's authority was law by design. And in death, his last thought became a chain around the council's collective throat. In less than 5 minutes, council fleets across 6 sectors powered down their weapons. Drones ceased flight patterns midair. Elite squads stood still, waiting for a new order that would never come. On a dozen war fronts, soldiers on both sides blinked into stillness, uncertain if this was surrender or something stranger, obedience. On Virulon, Elias lowered his rifle, watching his Widow's Eye confirm the shot with a soft chime. The system fed in the orbit's adjusted path, now silent, no longer jammed with defensive pulses. He didn't smile. Instead, he turned toward the horizon. His comms buzzed, a channel opening. Static cleared, and Lyra Quade's voice filtered through, crisp and steady. "You made quite a noise up there." "I was aiming for silence," Elias replied. "You got it. The networks are already calling for truce. Even the directions just recalled their black swords. I haven't seen the galaxy this quiet since the Treaty of Syndra. They'll call it fear. They should." She paused. "They're asking who you are." "I'm a messenger." She exhaled, not surprised. "They want to talk, face to face." Elias reached into his pack and pulled out the same photo. The 2 girls, their laughter preserved in faded ink, their world gone. He stared at it for a moment, then folded it again and slid it back into its compartment. "I'll listen," he said, "but they speak first. You could come back. Elias, Earth's quiet now. We have a place for you. No one knows where I belong anymore, least of all me." Far above, Lights on the Citadel flickered. A new signal pulsed outward, broadcasting Earth's inclusion into the Council of Systems, not as a minor observer, but as a sovereign military power. Back on the ridge, Elias began descending into the dust. He moved without hurry. The war was over. The galaxy had heard its warning. But peace, he knew, was only ever borrowed. And Earth, forgotten, mocked, dismissed, had just reminded the stars what happened when you aim at ghosts and miss.